Welcome to Stillwater's Wreath Designs. Today we're going to create this patriotic wreath using all items from the Dollar Tree. You'll find the materials and tool list in the description of this video below. Let's dive in. Welcome, welcome, come on in. I am so excited to teach you this new Deco mesh bubble method using all supplies from the Dollar Tree. So this is a great way to make a nice statement piece for your front door on a budget. Let me show you some of the supplies we'll be using today, friends. So I've got this cute stars and stripes patriotic sign. This came from the Dollar Tree. I've got 6 rolls of Deco mesh, all from the Dollar Tree, and you can see it's in a red, white, and blue theme. The 14-inch wire wreath frame, also from the Dollar Tree. And you're going to need between 45 and 50 zip ties, friends. These are 6-inch length zip ties. You can use any length that you would like. You're also going to need 2 mounting brackets. You'll also need your ruler, a good pair of scissors, and your hot glue gun. And friends, a list of all of these supplies and tools that we'll be using today will be below in the description of this video. If you are new to my channel, welcome. We're so happy to have you. Stillwater's Wreath Designs is all about front door decor, specifically wreaths and door swags. New tutorials upload every week, and I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button and join our little creative community here. So the first thing we need to do, friends, is prepare our sign, and it comes with this little twine hanger. We don't need that, so go ahead and cut that guy right off. And we need to get this sign prepped, friends. And so what we're going to do is use 2 mounting squares so that we can attach our sign to our wreath when we get to that point. And if you're new to wreath making, friends, and you're not familiar with mounting squares, they are definitely a wreath maker's best friend, or at least one of them. These guys are just an 1" by 1" square. They're plastic on the front, and I'm not sure if the camera's capturing that, but there's holes all the way around so that you can run a zip tie, pipe cleaners, floral stems, whatever you'd like, through the mounting brackets to attach your sign or embellishment right down into your wreath. Then on the back side, friends, you've got a really super sticky piece of 3M tape. And so you just literally peel the backing off. I typically use 2 mounting brackets for any type of sign. And you just push those guys right down onto your sign. They don't have to be square, friends. Nobody's going to see those. And then I prefer to run a quick bead of glue right around that mounting bracket where it touches the sign, just for some extra strength and stability. So we'll do that for both of these brackets here. Perfect. And now we'll just set this sign off to the side to dry. And that's going to be the only time you need your glue gun. So you can go ahead and unplug that. Go ahead and cut the tag off of your wire wreath frame. And you probably noticed earlier, friends, that I've actually grabbed 2 of each roll of Deco mesh from the Dollar Tree. Friends, let's just have a quick wreath frame 101 here. If you're new to wreath making, this is what's called a wire wreath frame. You can get these nearly anywhere. They come in all different diameters. This is the 14-inch wire wreath frame from the Dollar Tree. And so this entire piece is your wire wreath frame. It's got 4 rings, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then it's also got 6 crossbars. These are the crossbars. And then the distance between one crossbar and the next is considered a section. So you've got 6 sections on the 14-inch frame. And this is a new to me method, friends. I'm excited to give this a try. This entire wreath is going to be made out of Dollar Tree materials. So again, very cost effective and affordable. The only thing that did not come from the Dollar Tree For my purposes today, friends, would be my 6-inch zip ties. You can actually buy these in bulk online from any wreath making supply warehouse or even Amazon. I will link these below for you. This 6-inch zip tie is perfect for deco mesh attachments, embellishments, attachments, things of that sort. So definitely something you want to keep in your stash. And you're going to need your ruler handy and a good pair of scissors. So let me show you what we're going to do here, friends. We've got these 3 rolls of 6-inch deco mesh from the Dollar Tree. And I'm just going to cut off the edge of this blue one. It looks a little raggedy here, just to give it that clean cut. Let's take a look at our other 2 rolls. That looks pretty good, and that looks pretty good, actually. So if you're new to working with Deco Mesh, friends, Deco Mesh loves to fray. So anytime you can create a wreath with minimal amounts of cuts, that really reduces the fray and helps preserve the longevity of your wreath. And this particular bubble wreath has very few cuts, so I'm excited to give it a try. I'm just going to pull out a handful of my zip ties and have those easily accessible. And again, you're going to use, I would say, between 45 and 50 of these guys. So you need a good amount available to you. You can see that the Deco Mesh likes to curl in on itself, friends, basically following the roll of how it came to you. And we're going to lay all 3 colors on top of one another. A solid white would have looked equally great with this wreath idea, but my particular Dollar Tree didn't have any available. So we're going to just make do. We're going to marry up those ends pretty well. And we're just laying these guys right on top of one another. Like so. Now hang with me, friends. This is going to go somewhere cute, I promise. So once you've got all 3 of your rolls laying on top of each other, you're going to just kind of scrunch and gather that end into your fingers until you've got all of that Deco Mesh bunched up together nicely. And you've got this 1 to 1.5 inches tail. I'm just going to trim these scragglies off. So once you have that bunch, friends, go ahead and grab your wire wreath frame and all of our Deco Mesh here. We're going to be focusing on rings 2 and 3, those inner 2 metal rings on your wreath form. And we want to start out on a crossbar just because that's a good anchor, right? And so I'm going to run my 6-inch zip tie here, if you can see. Hopefully the camera's capturing that for you. Right over very middle space, so between rings 2 and 3. Then I'm going to take my Deco Mesh and lay that right on top of that crossbar, making sure I'm keeping that 1 inch or so tail. I'm going to take my zip tie and cinch this guy down. And because we've gone over that crossbar, it's really going to anchor in nicely. So you really want to cinch that tight, tight, tight. One other tool I forgot to mention earlier, friends, you'll need a good pair of small snips. If you don't have any in your wreath making stash, I'll leave a link for my favorite pair below so you can grab some if you'd like. Then you'll snip off that excess bit of zip tie. And we're going to basically make 7 bubbles per section. And remember, section is from one crossbar to the next. And so what you're going to do, friends, is take your ruler, and where your zip tie is, you're going to measure out 8 inches, okay? So I'm measuring out 8 inches, doesn't have to be perfect. I'm then going to scrunch and gather into my fingers. I'm going to come back in to my wreath frame. We're going to take our zip tie and wrap that around rings 2 and 3 of our wreath base, those inner 2 rings. We're going to start the zip tie right at that 8 inches that we've measured out. We're going to scooch that Deco Mesh so that we can get it as close to that most recent zip tie that we anchored it down with. And we're going to cinch that guy tight. trim off our excess bit of zip tie, and we've just made our first Deco mesh bubble. So you can see it's tall, it's fairly thin, and we've abutted that as best as we can. They will slide a little bit, that's totally fine. And we're going to do this over and over, and you want to add 7 Deco mesh bubbles to each section. And so again, we're going to measure out to that 8-inch mark. And again, not looking for perfection. Nobody's going to be measuring your bubbles. Scrunch and gather that into your hand. Grab a zip tie. Wrap that around rings 2 and 3. Add that right around where your 8-inch mark was, where your hand was. I'm just cinching it nearly all the way down. I'm going to make sure my mesh there isn't going anywhere, and then I'll shove this guy over and cinch it down. Grab my snips, trim off that excess bit of zip tie, and we've just added our second bubble. We're going to do this whole section together, friends, and then we'll zoom through. Remember, we're going to add 7 Deco mesh bubbles per section. You may have to straighten your mesh up a little bit from time to time. It just takes a jiffy. So again, we're going to measure from our most recent zip tie out to 8 inches. We'll scrunch and gather that together in our fingers. We're going to grab one of our zip ties and run that around rings 2 and 3, those center 2 rings. We're going to cinch that down most of the way. Just making sure our Deco mesh is all bunched up together, going the right direction. I'll scooch that guy over and cinch it down the rest of the way. And we're going to take our snips and trim off the tail of that zip tie. We've now added 3 Deco mesh bubbles, friends. Let's move on to the next. I'm going to take my ruler, measure out 8 inches, scrunch and gather this mesh into my hands. I'll grab a hold of it with one hand, grab a zip tie with the other, run it around rings 2 and 3. Up over our Deco mesh, and I'm going to cinch that guy down most of the way. Make sure our Deco mesh is all going the right direction. Scoot that bubble over and cinch it down the rest of the way. I'll grab my snips, trim off the tail of that zip tie. We've now added 4 Deco mesh bubbles, and we're on to bubble number 5. We're going to measure out 8 inches. Let me straighten up my mesh here. It's a little squirrely. Measure out 8 inches. I'm just going to scrunch and gather that mesh into our hands. Make sure that mesh is all going the right direction. We'll grab a zip tie, run it around rings 2 and 3. We'll cinch this guy down most of the way. Scoot him over where he belongs. Finish cinching down our zip tie here. Grab our snips and trim off that tail. We're on to bubble number 6, friends. Just going to measure out 8 inches from most recent zip tie. Scrunch and gather in my fingers. Grab a zip tie. As you get towards the last couple of bubbles here, it's a little bit tougher, friends. Just give yourself some grace. Wrap that zip tie around rings 2 and 3, those center 2 rings. Cinch that guy down most of the way. Push that bubble in. Cinch it down the rest of the way and trim off the tail of that zip tie. All right, friends, we're on to bubble number 7. Last bubble for this section, so I'm just going to measure out 8 inches, scrunch and gather with my fingers. I'm going to grab a zip tie, run that through rings 2 and 3 right there in the center, those center 2 rings. I'll anchor it down most of the way. Make sure that deco mesh didn't get squirrely. I'm just straightening it out a little bit with my fingers. And then I'll push it over to the side, cinch it down the rest of the way, and trim off that tail. You can then just kind of come through and fluff that a little bit. You know, if you've got some room, you can scooch them a little bit. Perfect. So we've added our first section of 8-inch deco mesh bubbles, friends, and we're going to continue this process all the way around our wire wreath frame. At some point, probably halfway through, maybe a little bit further past, you'll have to go ahead and break out your second rolls of deco mesh. You'll just follow that same method that we did when we began here and anchor it down with an inch tail. So go ahead and fill in the rest of your wire wreath frame with your 8-inch bubbles, 7 per section, and I'll meet you back here. All right, friends, I've fully loaded this wreath base with all of these super cute bubble deco mesh bubbles. And now I'm just going to trim off this last little bit of mesh, leaving approximately an inch or so tail. Just be real careful where you cut, friends. You don't want to accidentally cut one of your bubbles. There we go. So friends, this is all I had left. Ironically, I just had a teeny tiny smidge of both the blue and the red, white, and blue, and none of the white. I'm not really sure how that happened, but nonetheless, here we have it, friends. And so the back of your wreath should look something like this, pretty clean. And the front of your wreath is full of all these super cute bubbles. Now, let me have a little full disclosure moment, friends. I don't generally use, in fact, now that I think about it, this is probably the first time I've ever used in a tutorial Dollar Tree mesh, because as I'm sure you discovered when you were making this, there's a lot of strings, a lot of fraying. It's a little bit sloppy and unprofessional. And because of that, I choose to use nearly always a much higher quality deco mesh. But because this wreath involved no cutting other than our ends, I thought that it would be safe to try, and so far I'm pleased with it. And so now that we've loaded our wire frame with bubbles, friends, it's time to fluff the bubbles. And so let me show you what fluffing the bubbles means. You're going to start at any bubble. At this point, there's no top or bottom of your wreath. And we're just going to kind of pull this mesh apart. So right now, all 3 layers of your deco mesh are laying one on top of the other, and they're scrunched together to give you this bubble method. And we're just going to kind of pull them apart. And so you've got 3 layers in there, and we're just separating the 3 layers. And I kind of want to go back and forth. So since I pulled the blue to the outside on this bubble, on the next one, I'm just going to pull it to the inside, and you're basically just pulling on your deco mesh with really no rhyme or reason other than you don't want to follow the same pattern twice. So we're going to work our way through this deco mesh bubble method wreath, separating those bubbles just by tugging on them, and they don't have to be 100% separate. However you want to do it, it's your wreath. Just don't follow the same steps every time, because you really want to give lots of variety. So go ahead and separate all of your bubbles one by one, working your way through your wreath here, and then I'll meet you back here. All right, friends, we've fluffed out all of our bubbles, and look how cute this is. You know, I keep looking at this, and quite honestly, I'm surprised it turned out as cute as it did. If you find any stowaway strings from your deco mesh, just go ahead and trim them off. And our next step, friends, is to add our decorative sign. At this point, it's nice and dry, and you can attach this guy down with some extra long zip ties, some pipe cleaners or chenille stems, or some floral wire. I always like to use floral wire stems to attach my signs and my heavier embellishment, friends. I just feel like that they're easier to work with. If you are new to wreath making, you're definitely going to want to add some floral wire stems to your wreath stash, friends. They're great for adding pieces into Deco mesh because they poke right through. I'll actually leave a link for these below if you'd like to grab some and add them to your wreath making stash. They're very cost effective. And these guys, friends, are 18 inches in length, and they're a heavier gauge, so they're nice and sturdy. And I just fold that in half loosely just to find that V center point, which tells me where the middle of that floral wire is, and I run it right through my bracket. And then I'm just giving it a couple of loose twists so it doesn't get squirrely and slide off. Then we'll do the same thing to add our second. Folded it into a V to find that center, running it through my mounting bracket and giving it a couple of loose twists. Of course, you can add your sign depending on what you're using anywhere on your wreath that you would like. I'm actually going to add my sign right in the middle. I think that would be just perfect. And so all you're going to do, friends, one at a time here, or one side at a time, I should say, is just take those floral wires and poke them right in through your mesh. I'm going to go ahead and separate a bubble. I am with my fingers kind of trying to find an area by a crossbar just for this upper piece to keep it from sliding it around. Give yourself some grace, friends. This takes a little bit of time. And again, I'm just parting my Deco mesh bubbles to add that guy in. Once my wires are ran through, I'm just going to make sure that that sign's laying where I want it to be, and then I'm going to hold it in place with my hands and flip it over. And as you can see, friends, here's our two wires, and I'm just going to give those 3 or 4 tight twists. And by tight, friends, what I mean is probably 80% tension. You want it tight enough that it's not going to go anywhere, but you don't want it so tight that your sign recedes into your wreath or the tension pulls off that mounting bracket. And you can see that my wire is on this crossbar here. That's not super necessary, I guess, since we've got all of these zip ties that can help keep it from sliding, but you definitely want to mount that either on the second or third ring. You don't want it on the outer or inner, or it will for sure slide. Once you've given that several twists, go ahead and trim off that excess bit of floral wire, and then take your needle nose pliers, pinch those ends together. And then I'm just going to kind of curl it back into the wreath, friends, because I don't want to poke myself or have my customer poke themselves. Perfect. And so now we're going to do the exact same thing on the bottom. Just make sure that your sign is centered before you poke it through. We'll flip it around and look how cute that is, friends. So at this point, you know, this wreath is 100% with Dollar Tree materials, with the exception of our 6-inch zip ties. Friends, look how super cute this turned out. We have made this entire beauty for exactly $10. Now, that doesn't include your tax or the cost for your zip ties. So at this point, it is super cute as it is, but of course, you know me, I'd like to add a bougie bow. So bear with me 1 second while I make a super quick and easy bow to add in for a little extra flair, and I'll meet you back here. Friends, I've just thrown together a quick hand bow here. If you are new to wreath making or bow making and would like a step-by-step tutorial, I'll leave a couple of links for you below in the description of this video. That'll give you some of that step-by-step guidance when it comes to bow making. So I'm just going to add this right up here in the corner. I am using floral wire stems to secure this guy down just like we did earlier. And I'm going to wrap it right around the corner here. I'm going to make sure that goes on nice and tight so that it doesn't go anywhere. And then I'll take my snips and trim off that excess bit of floral wire. And we'll toss those guys away. I'm going to grab my needle nose pliers again, pinch those ends together, and curl it back into the wreath so it doesn't poke us or our customer. Then I'm going to take a couple of minutes here and just fluff out my bow. I've got 4 loops of this 2.5-inch ribbon with those super cute glittery stars. Adorable. And then I've got just 2 loops of our red and white star. So I'm going to make the 2.5-inch in a broad X, as you can see here. And then I'm just going to run the red and white 1.5-inch straight across, or I should say diagonal since we're up here in the corner. And then I'm just going to pull my tails here from the stars and the stripes, and I'm going to dovetail them to match our sign. Of course, you could also angle cut. To dovetail, friends, that just gives you this pretty V on your ribbon. And all you do is fold your ribbon in half, your tail in half, and you're going to place your scissors on the folded side, not the open side. Come down 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch, cut up on the diagonal, and then when you open that, that'll give you that pretty V. And because it's wired, friends, you can shape it the way you'd like. I'm just going to run my fingers over it and pull it up towards my face, and then kind of curve down at the ends. And I'm going to dovetail my 1.5-inch as well. And I like to cut things at different lengths. I feel like it just gives it a little bit more character. But you can certainly trim your ends how you wish. My only tried and true hard guidance is that you want to make sure that your tails are not going to cover your sign. I'm going to cut these considerably shorter. We'll see how this looks. We can always take more off, but we can't put it back on. So I always like to cut cautiously. How cute is that, friends? Oh my goodness. We are definitely getting our patriotic vibe going here. You can grab some ribbon also from the Dollar Tree. This is something I just had in my stash. We made this entire wreath, friends, for exactly $10. That doesn't include the ribbon or the zip ties. But with the ribbon and zip ties, you're still probably not looking at more than $15. So this is a super cute and easy patriotic wreath that you can make that's very budget friendly. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and spending some time creating with me today, friends. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. It helps my little channel to grow. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. We're happy to have you in our creative community. Thanks, friends. Happy crafting.